Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline Podcast, a podcast dedicated to meaningful conversations that inform, educate, and inspire frontline workers, their families, and the public. Our goal is to shed light on the mental and behavioral health challenges faced by those on the front lines while providing valuable insights and real-world solutions. Minds on the Frontline is brought to you by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST 5 provides streamlined access to behavioral and mental health services and crisis resources for Michigan's Frontline 5 workers and their families. This includes all professional, part-time, and volunteer firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, corrections officers, and 911 dispatchers in Michigan and their immediate family members. First responders and mental health experts collaboratively created FST 5 to provide 24/7 live support, effective resources, and cutting-edge services to prevent and alleviate PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other frontline work-related mental and behavioral health challenges. Need help now? If you are a frontline worker in Michigan or an immediate family member experiencing any crisis, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, finances, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG or go to fst5.org for more information. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of your hosts, and I'm a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. Minds on the Frontline is co-hosted by Mike Mattern, also a professional firefighter and paramedic. In addition, Mike is a peer support team member for his fire department and the FST 5 program. In this episode, we welcome Scott Stockinger and his two children, Cole and Amber. Scott is a professional firefighter and paramedic with the Dearborn Fire Department, a peer support team member, and an RN with extensive experience in the ICU and the ER. His children, Cole and Amber, are both young professionals navigating their own careers while reflecting on what it meant to grow up with a first responder father. This conversation takes us inside of their home and reveals what it is really like for Cole and Amber to live with the reality of their dad's job, the sacrifices, the fears, and the deep love they have for their father. During the COVID lockdown, a family conversation in the kitchen opened Scott's eyes to the emotional toll his career had taken on his family. What he learned in that moment shocked him. During this conversation, we explore the hidden worries and fears that children of first responders carry and how the emotional impact of growing up with a firefighter parent shaped their perspective from childhood to adulthood. Cole and Amber shared the moments that shifted their view of their dad's job from something exciting to something deeply concerning. They also provide valuable advice for first responder families on handling these important conversations and finding the right balance between openness and protection. Throughout this conversation, we also recognize the vital role of Scott's amazing wife, Tracy, a dedicated nurse whose strength and support have been essential to their family. Her medical background gave her unique insight into Scott's career, helping their children process the realities of life as a first responder family. Through their story, we uncover the lessons they've learned along the way, offering insight into how first responders can better support their families while continuing to serve their communities. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn, and make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline Podcast social media channels. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Good morning.
Morning. How are you guys?
Morning.
How is everybody?
Very good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for joining us all the way down here. You brought your kids with you. And what's cool about you driving around with your kids is that there's no car seats for you to put them in.
No car seats for years.
Oh, my gosh. I got a 6 and a 4-year-old, like I mentioned on almost every podcast, and we're still in there. We're out of diapers, so you remember that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Big step.
Big, huge step. A lot of more freedom in that regard. But I welcome the day to open a door for my girls, and they get in and put their seatbelts on, and then we leave.
Let me tell you, it's amazing.
Yeah, I
Wait
can
till you
only
get in
imagine.
the car and you're not in the driver's seat.
I don't want to do that yet.
That's an interesting time,
Well, I
too.
think by then we'll
Can't wait for
Rivian
that
and
one.
Tesla have that figured out with the self-driving this, and I don't got to worry about my kids. So, welcome, the Stockinger family.
Thank you.
Let's start with you, Scott. Who are you? What do you do, and where do you do it?
I have been a firefighter with Dearborn for almost 23 years now. I'm a captain at Station 2, a member of the peer support team since its inception. I'm a member of the tech rescue team, and that's been my fire side. I'm also an RN. I have been since 1993. by saying it that way, it doesn't have to sound so bad how many years I've been a nurse.
Right.
But I've been a nurse in ICU, ER, mobile ICU. I do different things at the hospital.
So you can't get away from that service industry in any way, shape, or form, huh?
I found out my thing is to help, so that's what I do. I'm a helper, Everybody has a thing. That's my thing.
Fuels your soul.
Takes care of all my needs.
Yeah, and then probably when you found the fire service, you found that camaraderie on top of it, eh?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
My heroes growing up were John and Roy from Emergency 51.
Yeah.
I wasn't a sports guy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
They've actually seen it many times now. It's on DVD.
That's pretty good. Amber, how about you?
Yeah, my name's Amber. I'm 24. I'm a Michigan State alumni. I currently work at Rivian with Cole. I happen to follow him around everywhere. Yeah, just, figuring out what's next for me in my life, and a proud daughter of a firefighter.
It's fun to look at two young people that have got their whole life ahead of them, and Dad's like, hey, they're almost out of the house. This is going to be nice a little bit, but I'm going to miss the crap out of them.
I'm going to miss them big time, for sure.
I get that. All right, young man. Cole, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, no, I'm Cole. I worked at Apple before Rivian as my first job right out of high school for almost 7 years now. And then after that, I moved into Rivian, where I've been the last year and a half, customer service pretty much the entire time. And at this point, I'm looking to do a 180 on the career and become an electrician. So
right on.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm tired of talking about people's problems. I want to start actually solving problems. And have something I actually view as a career. So
yeah, electricians and firefighters have a lot in common in the way that when you show up, people are happy.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. That's what I like to hear. So,
right?
Yes.
You just don't get to code there, right? And you get to charge
Whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
Yeah.
Both provide vital services.
Yes.
So thank you for your service.
And their
Yes.
futures. They're both slightly dangerous, too. You got to put that out there.
Yeah, trust me, a lot of us don't like
I've
dealing
picked up a
with
lot of electrical injuries over the years. So
Yeah.
very dangerous.
House fires on both sides.
Yeah.
Yes. And
All
also has exquisite facial hair, just like his dad.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is. I get compliments on it a lot, and this is I started this a few months ago.
Wow.
This isn't even like.
You can stop bragging.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. No, it's a blessing and a curse. Let me tell you.
I feel you there. All right. So you guys are here to talk about the family dynamics of a first responder family. And Scott, specifically, when you and I started talking, you said it wasn't until COVID, when you were home, not only with the family locked in, but you were also off on an injury. So you were limited in so many other things. You're home with the family, and conversations started to come up. What led to these conversations that enlightened you about how your kids actually feel about the job you go to?
We were big on getting everybody in the kitchen during COVID. So we were in the kitchen cooking dinner, and some conversations just came up about me being a firefighter. And then it just morphed into how the family was dealing with me being a firefighter and what I didn't know about what they were feeling and seeing as me being a firefighter. And it was very shocking to me.
What was said that stood out the most to you?
How much I actually got to the point where I think all four of us were in tears, good and bad. And it was the fact that how much they worried about me. Like, they really covered it up well all these years, because I always thought that they were fine with it. I thought everything that I had put into play and done worked, and they weren't worrying about me. And here I'm finding out they worried about me a lot more than I wanted.
Amber, tell me more.
Yeah, it's a unique thing to have your dad in a job where he might not come home at the end of the day. A lot of other people don't have to deal with their parents not at home all the time, or with these higher risks. So I think we were kind of opening that conversation up. A lot of it in part due to the peer support team that was really coming to fruition at the fire station, because it was starting to be recognized, like, it's not just a physical thing, which when you're younger you worry about your dad, getting injured in a fire or something, but the mental aspect of the job, seeing what he has to see on a daily basis, largely affects you. So I think that also kind of brought up the conversation. But yeah, no, we definitely do worry. Like, it's hard not to when you see people around him experiencing, depression and higher suicide rates, cancer, illness, disease. It's all from, what he does.
What about the peer support aspect of your dad being involved made it feel comfortable to kind of bring it up? Was it COVID? Was it the combination of many things where it was like at the surface to actually discuss?
I would say because he was talking about it more, it opened the conversation for us to talk about it more. It was nice to hear him say, like, I have really hard days. There's days I cry. There's days I really saw some terrible things, or some of my buddies are seeing some terrible things, and I'm taking that weight from them a little bit. That's a lot of pressure. So I think his comfortability with it made us a little bit more comfortable with it, because we're an emotional family, but we're not ones to really dive into that too much sometimes. He's definitely the starter when we all kind of start to talk about things that affect us.
Cole, do you agree that your dad talking about what his experiences are at an emotional level, not just telling you the calls he goes on, but how it makes him feel, did that help you tell him how his job impacts you and the lifestyle that you guys have to endure?
For me, at the end of the day, it wasn't something that I wasn't not comfortable talking about. I think it really more came down to just the fact that it was being brought up more. Again, I think the big thing was the catalyst was the peer support group was really kind of crystallizing at that time, and so it was just a common topic that was brought up, and it's something that I think was kind of subconsciously on everyone's minds because Dad had talked about it, so like it was on our minds as well. But for me, it was more just kind of joining the conversation. At the end of the day, it wasn't really like I never not felt comfortable bringing it up or in kind of that sense. So I was just more of like kind of bandwagoning with, the situation that was kind of unraveling at the time. So I think it just happened to be something on everybody's time, and it was just the moment that sparked it to kind of just start the discussion about it, really.
Scott, what surprised you the most?
One of the things that, surprised me is I asked them kind of towards the end of this conversation, why did you guys never say anything to me? And they didn't want to add any more stress to my life. And I'm like, but that's okay. I'm your dad. This is a different relationship. It's not like we're friends and you're trying to protect me. I'm Dad. You've stressed me out since the day you were born.
My kid's breathing stresses me out.
Right.
It's like, gotta keep that going.
Right. We got to keep the basics going, right? So the stress of it is like, I wish you'd have told me sooner. We could have had this conversation sooner. I'm glad we had it when we did. It was definitely a different conversation. But at the same time, I'm like, why didn't you tell me sooner? We didn't want to add stress to what was already a stressful life for you. So,
wow.
Those are heavy things when your kids tell you that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what age they are. When they're telling you that, as adults, it's still even hard to grasp. You know?
Just to chime in a little bit, too, I think it was also the time we were in. When you're in a global pandemic like COVID-19 was, and your dad still has to go to work no matter what. It's not like he gets to work from home as a firefighter. That also is another thing, like, wow, in the most dangerous times in our life, he has to be the one on the front line. You know what I mean? So you also fear a little bit, wow, he's much more likely to get COVID than the rest of us, or spread it to us potentially because, we do live in the same household. So that was also, I think, a part of the catalyst of the conversation.
So, Scott, I remember you and I had this conversation. You brought it up at about finding out about your kids and how much it affected them, and it really kind of struck a chord with me. And I don't think I've ever told you the story, but shortly after that, I had a situation where I thought about you and I thought about Cole and Amber because early morning we had a fire on 94. It was a bus that caught fire. While you're doing the job, you never know if there's cameras, there's not cameras, whatever it might be. It was right before shift change. I come home, and the bus fire is on the news. And they zoom in, and they can see me on the fire.
Right.
Well, my son, who's 9 at the time, goes, "Hey, Dad, is that you?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, buddy. That thing was rolling, this, that, and the other." I think it's a cool story.
Right. You understand the operational safety. You understand the strategic.
Yeah.
Yes. And he goes, "That's you right there, isn't it?" Next to this bus, it's just,
danger. He sees nothing but a movie
and
of
I'm like,
danger.
"Oh, yeah, we got it out, this and that." And it wasn't until probably a couple days later, we're driving to school, and he's like, "Do buses just catch on fire like that?" And he starts asking me questions about bus fires. Like now he's scared that any bus that he gets on is going to catch on fire and those types of things. So it really kind of cued me in on, and especially after talking to Scott, like, oh man, maybe he's starting to get to that point where Dad's job isn't just cool, but he's realizing Dad's job is dangerous. Right? At that point, I kind of changed how I talked to him about I didn't stop telling him about things, but then I would tell him about how safe things are, and that was just maybe it was a shorted electrical or whatever it might be to kind of ease those fears.
You gave him some perspective of the reality of that, rather than letting his imagination run with that.
Yes.
And honestly, too, one thing I've done that probably I would take these two in a fire with me.
Yeah,
and here's why. Because I've talked so much about what we do over the years with safety.
Yeah,
they probably know what to do. I mean, literally, you know, and
Honestly,
a lot
yeah.
of that is part of the safety thing. Like I tell my wife, you know, this is the training we've done. These are the things that I'm doing. This is how we do this. Cole and Amber both ask me, like, what do you do when this situation occurs? And I explain it probably in more detail than most people want. But I'm trying to let them know, look, this isn't just haphazard. I'm just not running towards the fire like willy-nilly. There's thought behind this. I want to go home. I want all of my guys that are underneath me to go home. So I'm not just making some rash decisions here. We've got training behind us. And I'm not kidding when I say that. If I put these guys in suits, threw them in there, I probably could get through a fire with just the two of them with me.
You look at a lot of first responders, they're about as safety conscious as it comes outside of work. You know, I'm the dad who's like, no, you're putting on a bike helmet.
Right,
because I've
right.
seen 8 kids get smoked not having a bike helmet.
Oh, yeah,
like,
for sure.
You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
That was a real eye-opener for me. That, like, maybe he's looking at my job a lot differently than what he was before.
For sure.
Right? And that it had a huge impact on me. So I kind of want to talk to Cole and Amber, get your perspective here. What was the thing that worried you about your dad's job when you were younger versus when, like, now you are adults?
I think for me, especially, like, unfortunately, I tried to think about, like, the time frames, and I have no idea, like, how old I was when I was feeling certain things. But I'd say at the beginning of it was very much just pure excitement. Like, my dad's a firefighter. Like, that's fucking cool. Like, there's no way around it. Like, I thought I had the coolest dad in the world. Still do.
Were you that kid who, like, people are like, oh, I got to see a fire truck? I'm like, I'm in them every day.
Yeah, exactly.
You're running around. You got Uncle this and Aunt
Do
that.
not forget, I am better than you. But no, absolutely. So I think for the longest time, it very much was just like pure excitement, pure joy in that sense, or just like, oh, this is really cool. But definitely as I got older and like I understood reality more and like the situation and things like that, like a worry did come in time with that. Where it still was cool, but it was much more of an understanding of like, hey, you know, and again, at a very young age, I understood, you know, Dad might not come home one day, but the gravity of that didn't really set in until much later on, where it was like, you know, you just understand, like, you know, bills have to be paid, life goes on, the house has to be taken care of, things like that. And so I think once I started to understand those things, the worry did come on as well, and especially as I've gotten older, and I think understand just conceptually life a lot more. The worry really moved away from the danger of the job, because honestly, I've kind of learned that the danger of the job is there, but like, I kind of hate to say it, but it's like, that's almost the most fun part. Is like, at the end of the day, I think firefighters are kind of like closeted adrenaline junkies, because it's like
They're
running
not
into a burner.
They're not closeted.
adults.
Yeah.
We don't hide it.
Maybe not.
Probably like
we don't hide it.
Well, we probably hide the extreme aspects up from our families so
Yes.
that they don't worry about the things we want to do.
Yes,
Right.
Yes, but at the end of the day, that sense of danger is like just a part of it. Like, that's part of the joy of it to a degree.
Certainly is.
And again, in a very kind of weird, like, you know, morbid way, if you will. But I think, you know, once I understood that part, I'm like, they're fine. They're going to do the best that they can. Situations are going to happen. It was more about what happens after that. Like, what happens when you come home? What happens after retirement? Like, I especially towards the end of it here, I got more worried about not so much, you know, Dad not coming home, but Dad not having a long retirement. Like, he gave his life to his community. And so, like, to me, it became more important that he got to reap those rewards, got to see me go through all the stuff I want to go. Like, I have so many plans and things that I want him to be able to, like, experience with me, you know, just through my life. And it's just so it kind of became more of, you know, what's happening after. Not so much of the job itself, but, like,
How do we get the longevity?
Yeah.
Out of it?
right, yeah. Like,
How do you get the payoff at the
The
end?
service
Yeah.
beats you up.
Yes.
You see it. You've probably seen you've been to probably couple dozen retirement parties.
Yeah.
You see the
Yeah.
old guys that are retired. You've probably heard that, unfortunately, Dearborn firemen are experiencing a lot of cancer rates. And
Yeah,
So
exactly.
these are all things that are going to weigh on you, and you see, you're like, but I want my dad for 30 more years, 40 more years with grandkids and all the
exactly.
things.
Whether they're living or not, they have given their lives to their community,
Yeah.
and so it's just like I want them to be able to have the lives that they deserve at the end of the day.
That
so,
they planned.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that kind of became the biggest worry as the older I got, and especially towards the end of his retirement, like that obviously came up more. But just the older I realized, like, what life was truly about, and like understood, you know, life as a whole. Like, that's really where it came down. Because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you guys do so much training. The job is dangerous, but like, you guys are professionals. Like, this is what you do. This is what you're supposed to do. Like, I don't know. Just so that's kind of where the
That's
worry
how
came
you
from.
did the whole the prayer of letting go of the things you can tell that there's the things you can control and the things you
Yes.
can't.
Yeah.
I can't control what happens when he's there, but I know he controls how much he trains.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So, Amber, what about you? What were your fears when you were younger versus now as an adult?
Yeah, definitely when you're younger, it's just awesome. You just want to brag. It's super cool that your dad's a firefighter. He tells you all these really fun stories, and you just get to like really feel proud. And we were especially that family to feel super proud of everything he was doing. But as you get older, yeah, that I would align with Cole 100%. Like the biggest fears now, actually, I'm more worried now than I think I ever was, just because of those higher cancer rates. And I participate in the fireman cancer walks, and you see his friends and colleagues, fall short in their journeys, which is like really tough for him because not a lot of careers do you lose so many friends and coworkers. So hard in terms of the the depression factor and the anxiety levels, but also the illness and cancer that could come from it. So
I'm going to add to this too, so you guys get a better perspective. They lost both of their grandfathers at a very young age. My father died at 59 from an extremely rare cancer. Cole barely remembers him, and Amber doesn't at all. And then my father-in-law passed away years later, also from cancer. They didn't have jobs like mine where they're exposed to these things. My dad was a computer guy at Ford Motor Company, and my father-in-law worked for GM in the factory as a management. So again, not jobs that put them in harm's way, and they still didn't make it to the end.
Definitely changes your perspective.
Yeah,
when
most
it comes
definitely,
to it.
most definitely.
And now Dan's
here I
sitting
am.
in-
I'm going into a building that the entire thing's full of poisonous gases. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
so it does put a big perspective on
Hey,
things.
let's not forget the fact that class 1 carcinogen, lack of sleep.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
So
for
not
sure.
only the ideal H atmospheres, these immediately dangerous to life and health, but the chronic lack of sleep from helping people at night is only adding to that, your genetic predisposition to it.
Yeah, and I worked midnights at the hospital for 10 years.
What's wrong with you?
he's literally lined up all the fields that have the highest rates of the worst things.
Are you impossible to insure?
No, thank God.
Like
God,
life
no.
insurance would be like $1 million a year for you.
No.
Now, talking to you guys also kind of go along that same route. Like I talked about that specific incident where that was the first time my son was like, oh man, dad could be in a spot where it could be kind of dicey. Were there kind of any specific moments or incidents like that kind of made you feel like, okay, this is real now, or this is now more scary when you're thinking about dad going to work?
Weirdly, it's not his fireman job, but his job at the hospital when Ebola was going on. It was like a really big thing. There was an outbreak. There was a team they created in case somebody, in the area got Ebola.
Yep.
And he came home and asked us all, like, hey, I want to sign up for this team. Is it okay if I sign up for this team? And we were all like, if this is something you want to sign up for, like, it just goes to show, like, how he's just right in there always. Yeah. We were like, yeah, absolutely. If that's something you want to do it. But it also was like, holy crap, my dad's going to be the first one to jump into the worst situations because that's just the kind of guy he is. So that became, I think, a really real moment for me. But also you're really proud at the same time because if he were to ever, anything were to happen, he was doing what he loved and what he was meant to do.
Yep. Cool.
I love that.
Anything specific with you?
I wouldn't say there was a particular moment where I was like, oh, like, this is real. I think there was always an underlying thing. I think the Ebola situation was a good example of, like, my dad's the one who's gonna do it, that frontline guy. Like, somebody's got to take that first step, and he's going to be the one to do that. So definitely a very proud moment there. I definitely remember, too, because I don't think you were necessarily involved, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was the incident where there was that one building on fire, and somebody almost fell through the roof. And it was caught on a camera through it was like a helicopter view. It seems like.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
actually, it was
Station-
Chief Murray was one of them, and then two other gentlemen. It replays. I just saw it literally 3 days ago.
Yeah, that one
on
does
social
get played a
media.
lot.
It plays a
Yeah,
lot.
it gets played a lot because it was a close call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. Again, that specific moment, obviously you weren't involved, but I think that was just another reminder of, like, shit's going to happen. Like, this is just kind of the reality of the situation. And so I was, again, I nothing that was really like, oh my God, like, this is it. But it was just like, just a gentle reminder of, like, hey, this is the reality of the situation. Because I don't know if I'm just someone who's particularly morbid or just, like, I think after our first grandpa passed away, it was just like death to me kind of just changed from, like, they died, I didn't die. And I think that was kind of the thing. So it's just like, I'd rather dad come home in a body bag knowing that he did his best and everything he could than, come home come home and be like defeated in some way.
And do you feel comfort in that, saying that, because your dad's always been so open about his passion, his love, what he does? Like, because you feel that. It's not like dad just leaves, right? Because I could see being closed off to protect your children, not tell them too much. Yeah, dad just goes or helps some people. You know what firefighters do. And leave it at that. versus, and then maybe something happens bad.
Right.
Versus them understanding it to its core.
Right.
And that it is a part of you and that you are a part of it and that it's something that you have to be.
There's actually been conversations with all three, my wife, my son, and my daughter privately, separately, about if something happens to me and how each one of them are going to handle it and what they're going to do and who's going to take over and do things. I remember when Cole turned 18. I mean, you remember that conversation? I said, "You're 18 now, buddy." And,
I had no conversation. I remember.
I love how introspective he is with no memory.
Yeah, that's great.
You're very thoughtful for that as like goldfish memory.
Once I review the memory, it's like I've now extrapolated what I need. The memory can be forgotten. I got what I need.
I talked to him at 18, and I said, "Hey, this conversation would have happened no matter what, but it's really important now because if something does happen to me, I don't want to put pressure on you, but I need you to pick it up a little bit around here and just make sure you take care of the girls, take care of your mom.
And you're
your
applying a little bit of
sister.
pressure now to take off a huge amount potentially in the later.
Yeah, because it's like, just so you know, this is where you stand. And that's when I opened him up to things like I started showing him the bills and I started showing him how to do things. And we talked about stuff. And all of our lives we've been working. I've opened the kids up to doing things around the house and taking care of the house. They help me. My daughter's changed oil with me. She knows how to take care of her car, use tools. Those things all kind of came to a real header when he turned 18. It's like, okay, if something happens to me, I know that these two are going to be fine.
Now, did all that time leading up to that allow you to have that conversation and knew they had the tools to accept and understand it? Because it's one thing to tell somebody, and then it's to prepare them to do it.
Regardless of the fact you're a firefighter, I mean, you can walk out your door and not come home, and that goes for anybody, right? It doesn't matter what you do. That's the worst part about being a parent is when these guys become adults and they leave the house in a car by yourself. It's like, I don't care how good a driver they are, how much I believe in them. There's a bunch of idiots out there that could cause problems.
How many times have we seen that?
So we have to prepare them, and it doesn't matter whether you're a firefighter or not. You have to prepare your children for their future and for things to happen. And I think my dad passing early at 59 and my father-in-law passing early, even though they were later in life, they still, kind of like left that situation open and said, hey, people are behind that need to take care and pick up the things, and I wanted to make sure my kids could pick up what they needed to.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best things you could do as a parent, and how I kind of look at with my son is I'm preparing him to live with me not around.
Yeah.
That's my job as a parent.
Right.
Like, it's my job to prepare you for life when I'm not here.
And you know what? Doing the physical things, you're preparing them to take care of a house, take care of their car. And also having conversations with them and talking to them regularly about the tough things in life, you're preparing them mentally to handle this too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy or anything like that. I'm just saying they're going to be more prepared than the kids that didn't get any preparation or the family that didn't get any preparation.
And you're saying that a lot of
it.
it's just through conversation. It's not like going out practicing anything so much as the open communication of understanding and realization of what is and is not in this world.
I think for you, your mindset was like, when I turned 18, like that's when you were going to have that conversation, which I think is totally fair. Like you could become an adult, like have that conversation. But for me, I think it started well before that.
Oh, I'm sure.
One, I think us as a family, and I think especially with you and Mom's, the way you guys were raised, we are a very independent family. Like I dream of being able to take care of my own house. That's literally half the reason I wake up most mornings at this point. Is just like I literally wish something will break for me to fix it.
Picked the perfect career choice.
Electrician.
Well done.
That's funny. The logic behind that was actually that's the last skill I need to actually be able to build my own home, which is my end goal. So I'm like, I might as well make a career out of it. But no, I think a lot of that started where us being such an independent family, like we were just inherently helping around the house, especially with Dad being away so much. We had to help Mom with things. So we developed those life skills. And then again, as I got older, and I don't know if I'm just an exception or not, or just like how common this is, but it's like I again realized very early on that like, hey, again, Dad might not be here. I know it's going to fall on to me to fill that gap if that should arise. So it's like I just automatically started doing things and becoming very much more conscious of things and just being aware and like observing and being like, how do they handle things? How does things go on? Like I was always just, around, or I was the flashlight boy. You learn a lot being the flashlight boy from just watching. And so I think having that conversation is really important, but also understanding that like either maybe unconsciously like we are, or maybe trying to be more conscious of it, that you're intentionally training your kids literally for and again, that was just more general parenting advice too, is just you're training your kids for everything, in every aspect that you do, every motion, every word, everything that you do is observed and taken in. So I think it just happened much earlier on, but I think there was that formal conversation that kind of then transpired.
Great. Okay, now I want to get some advice from you guys. For all first responder families, I want to get into things you should always do, the things you should be cautious of, and the things to stay away from, right? The green light, the yellow light, and the red light. So first of all, and I'm going to start with just asking the kids, but I do want you to chime in, Dad. Based on your experiences, what are the things that first responder parents should do to help their kids understand the realities of their job? These are the must-dos.
Yeah, I would say at a young age, we got to go to the fire station and see my dad's second home, and that was huge for me to understand where he's going and spending the night. Like, it's a very confusing thing for a kid to be like, why is my dad not home every night? But when you see his bed and you see his other home, his other family that he's spending all this time with, you really understand that situation a little bit better, and you feel a lot better about it. You feel like, oh, okay, he's got a nice cozy bed, he's got a kitchen, he's got these buddies, you know? So exposing them to the place and then making it exciting. Like, we loved going to the fire station. He'd show us something new every single time we were there. You know, we get to climb on everything and play around and get this kind of like special experience, you know, that you don't get when you're in school and the firemen all come. No, the firemen all come and I know the firemen that just came and I'm asking about their kids. So you get that kind of special experience, and that made it feel like really, like, you know, really, really special. Like, he really is a hero to me.
So showing your kids the environment and kind of demystifying it makes it not only more fun, it bonds, and a little pride maybe in Dad.
Definitely.
And a little bit more softer understanding of when he leaves. The danger aspect is a little more dulled out.
Yeah, as well as telling all the cool stories. You have to tell the cool stories. That is like my favorite part of what he does, is coming home and hearing, oh, this fire, this happened, and just going into detail about everything. That is also like, share the good ones, share the, you know, the ones that have some sort of significance, and share that excitement. Because then it's like, it really weighs out kind of what we were talking about earlier, really weighs out all the negative or the times you might feel a little stressed from a situation. I'd never think to those. I think of all the cool things he's done. You know, he's been able to deliver babies and literally save people's lives, these crazy situations, you know, de-escalate fights and just, you know, all sorts of wild, fun stuff.
That's just in the firehouse.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, the pranks in the firehouse.
Yes.
No.
So really give a perspective of the good and the bad, the cool stories, but also the stories that maybe didn't go as well.
Share the
Yeah.
passion.
Yes.
Yeah,
Show
absolutely.
the environment, share the passion. That's
Kids pick up on passion for sure.
Yeah.
At
Oh,
a
for
young
sure.
age, we knew that, like, this was my dad's.
Right.
This is him.
It made
It's
you
thing.
excited because you knew he was excited. It didn't make you really want to do the job so much as, this is cool,
Yeah,
my
sometimes.
dad. Right, sure. But like in a way of like, only through he's so infectious about it.
Yes,
That he
yes.
made you, I'll do that.
Yes.
Right. So how about you, Cole? What are the must-dos that add on to that?
Something that was important to me was just understanding the concept that this is a dangerous profession at the end of the day. Dad might not come home. And starting that at a young age, but not to the point of like making it like fear-mongering.
appropriate.
Yeah, obviously you're their parent, judge well, but it's like, just, you need to put the seed in there. You can, I don't know how best to present that.
Is
However
it maybe
you
to
presented
say
it
like,
was good.
don't sugarcoat it so much.
Yes.
Don't say it's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's not like you need to bring it up constantly, but just like be like, hey, you know, Dad, or if you're the one presenting it, be like, hey, you know, this is the situation. Like, I might not come home one day because, you know, I have a dangerous profession. But leave it at that. You don't need to bring it up every time. You don't need to like continue driving home. But just at a young age, put the seed in there, because I think it definitely helps. Just, again, change your mindset. At least for me as a kid, it changed my mindset of like, hey, I need to be more conscious of this now, and then drove me to do all these things and whatnot. So
Did it scare you?
I can't distinctly remember the exact feeling I had when it was delivered. And again, I can't remember if it really happened after our grandpa passed and my kind of concept. And I was kind of, you know, going through a lot, especially as a child, just like processing death and whatnot. So I think for me, it was maybe a little bit easier to hear after especially experiencing that. But I think it might be a little scary at first. And I think that's one thing you gotta cross that bridge. Like, it is going to be scary, and especially it's going to be even scarier if I didn't know it was coming, and then it just all of a sudden happens. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, it might be scary at first, but with all those good things, all the passion, and having those fun opportunities to see stuff that nobody else has gotten to, like, it definitely can help ease that time, at least during that young age there. And then as you get older, I think it's a lot easier to talk about, because it's like, you've grown as a person, you understand life and death and things like that.
So really have that open conversation and really have that dialogue, and also have those experiences, is really immerse them in the life of it, and the good, the bad, the ugly.
Be truthful.
Yes.
I really believe part of this green light is you got to be truthful with them, age appropriate. So you got to know the age appropriateness of your child, the developmental age, and where they're at with your child. But as they're growing up, you kind of add a little bit more to it every time, you know, a little bit more, a little bit more. Because it is fun to get them here, have dinner with them at the station. Oh,
Yeah.
we're having dinner at the station.
Yes.
And the more they understand, the more they can be appreciative of what you do every day.
And you know what, too? I mean, it's so funny. There's a ton of fire shows out there, and Emergency is one of them that's older. You know what I do is we'd sit and watch it together, and then I'd tell them, oh, wow, we don't do it like that. I'm like, this is how we do it, and it's much safer.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't use manila
And all the
rope anymore
firefighters and
versus
EMS
rescue
and police
rope, right?
officers are gorgeous on every TV show. Like, none of my crew looks like these guys.
There is not a rope. There's no rope rescue every single day you go to work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but I think that helped a little bit too. Because it's like I could explain to them, okay, that looks dangerous. It is, but we make it even safer today. We've come a long way. So
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so let's get a little caution, Dad and kids. Let's start with you, Amber, again, yellow. What are things that are like things you should be really cautious of? And maybe the age appropriate is almost like a part
Leads
of this.
into that,
yeah, right?
Yeah, I would say things to be cautious of is probably the things that he has withheld in the certain moments that he should have withheld them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's been things to happen that, like, you just don't need to be scaring your kids with when they're going through, all these other life changes and puberty and this and that. You're already, a mess as a kid. Maybe not the time to say, Dad almost died the other day.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait till they're in their 20s, like, you wouldn't believe what happened 20 years ago.
Exactly, and again, with discretion, and hopefully he had peers to talk to at that time to be able to let that out, because sharing those are really important. Sharing those stories are really important to get that out and process, but maybe not with the, younger kids or the kids that are going through that. So definitely, kind of just testing the waters there. But
So it seems like the cautious part is you can't go a little too overboard when the kid isn't quite there mentally, emotionally. And it's age dependent, but it's also human dependent. I know certain kids that can handle a lot at 6 years old.
for sure.
And some that can't handle it when they're 16.
Nope, right, exactly.
So it's like you got to be so connected to your kid to understand what they can accept.
I have two that are 2 years apart.
Right.
So I can't give them both the same information.
Right.
Yes.
Because if I give them both the same information, I'm kind of discrediting Amber here by not going along with her age. If I think Cole's available to handle it, I need to separate that out and talk to him individually.
And they individually probably accept information differently.
Which is another good time when we're working on the house or doing things together. Those moments of conversations weren't always about that. Those were those moments I had privately with each one of them.
Exactly.
If she's helping me, the conversation's different than if he's helping me.
I look back on helping uncles and my dad.
Yeah.
And I look back on it, and it wasn't the thing. I don't remember what we were doing, but I could tell you what we talked about.
Yes. Exactly right.
We were
Absolutely.
fixing something.
Yep.
Something
Yes.
broke or something needed to be painted. Next thing you know, we're chatting about life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's where the things come up. So spending that time together.
Yeah.
So be cautious and make sure you spend a lot of time with these
Make
kids.
sure you do. Yeah. For sure.
So it seems like the yellow one is like just so independent to your family. Know the humans you're dealing with and only give them what they can handle, but don't coddle people maybe.
No, because you've got other stressors to remember. What if there's a divorce happening right now?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? What if there's another death in the family? What if something's going on? You, the first responder, have to be the one that really picks and chooses. And again, you don't want to lie and you don't want to hold back too much. A couple of things got held back from my wife, and then I told them to her later as we went on further, and she wasn't upset by that. It didn't really upset her any. But if you held back too much, I think that would, if they find out about it, I think that would upset them that you didn't feel comfortable enough to tell them. You know what I mean?
And it's unique for you because you have a wife that's a nurse that can understand very specific aspects. Whereas my wife's not. So I have to be in a different way cautious.
Yes.
Like she feels the empathy through the people I care for.
Right.
And she feels bad for them.
Right.
And doesn't see, like I'm like trying to solve this riddle of the patient, what's going on.
Sure.
And she sees the human being in suffering. So I have to make sure that my stories are in line with the point of which I'm telling.
You have to work with what you got.
Right.
You know what I mean? And everybody's got something different. So,
Yep.
it all depends what your situation is. It's not easy. There's no manual that says this is right, this is wrong. There's nothing out there that tells you exactly how to do this. It's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And I think you learn by screwing up a couple times.
Oh, most definitely.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
That's a good
Yeah,
segue.
you-
Screwing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reds. What do we avoid?
Avoid keeping them away from the station. I think having them at the station was a great thing.
Yeah.
Having them eat with us at meals, showing them at a very young age, this is how Dad lives when he's not with you, And so they know that. Keeping that from them is the not to do thing. You know what I mean? That's
would agree,
not to do. Stop.
So keeping them in the dark is not the resolution to
No.
keep them safe.
Not at all. Get them involved with things. Amber's not officially a Stop the Bleed instructor, but she teaches with me in Stop the Bleed only because she can't be because of her profession's not in the list of things for Stop the Bleed. But I'll take her anywhere with me. Sure. She's amazing, right?
It's a skill.
And
It's
again,
not a license,
another thing that we just added together that we can do together that, she's as much important to teach somebody how to do that thing as I am. So, including them as much as you can with what you do,
Maybe another red is don't be withdrawn when you're feeling it from work.
Yes, there's been multiple times where he's just come home from a hard day, and you could tell something's off with him, and he just bursts out crying, and you're just kind of like, oh, like get it out now. We're your family. Yeah. This is what we're here for. You know what I mean? Is to like hear that story and to embrace you in this moment.
And I think I'm very fortunate that they're willing to accept that, and that I took them down that path early on so that wouldn't surprise them, because I know some people would be in that situation and be like, what the heck is wrong with Dad? He just burst out in tears,
Well, more importantly, a lot of dads won't do it.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
And their coping mechanisms end up being negative. There's the withdrawn, could be substance use, could be just avoidance of being with their family. There's a lot of things like you're like, dude, I got to off gas. The steam's about to pop. We're going to do it safely, but you're going to see Dad whistling.
I'm very fortunate there. My medical career early on, I was 21 years old when I was an RN working in an intensive care unit, trying to learn and be the best I can be. And when you're 21 and your patients are dying and you're like, what in the heck is wrong with me? I'm a terrible nurse. I had good mentors, friends of mine still to this day who helped me get through that and learn how to cope with those coping mechanisms. And most of it comes down to just getting it out, right? I mean, we know that from peer support and from what you guys have talked about in podcasts in the past. It's like, just getting it out.
That's the key, is just getting it out. The longer it's going to come out one way or the other. It's going to come out.
And it's going to come out either ugly or sad. And you'd rather have it be sad. That's how I look at it.
Yes.
It's not going to ever be good, right? But it's sad. Sad's good.
So another red light is don't bottle your emotions.
Yeah, definitely.
I see it as a strength, honestly, because you know what I mean? You could turn to so many other things than doing that, but being vulnerable in front of us shows us we can be vulnerable too.
And teaching kids today that's okay. Wouldn't you agree, Cole? That teaching you to be a little bit vulnerable, to speak your mind and say who you are. I mean, one thing I love about Cole is that he has no problem in front of Tracy and I speaking his mind. Sometimes I've not been happy about it. He really speaks his mind. But you know what? Deep down inside, I'm so proud. He's letting it out, and he's telling me exactly how he feels about something, and it's maybe passionate for him or something that he really feels about. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just general good life advice. It's just don't bottle it up at the end of the day. Because I think
but it's probably especially when you have a job, any job, like your job can be stressful.
Absolutely.
And you want to come home and complain about. I don't want to say complain. I want you to off gas about it, right?
Yeah.
And then the only difference in this one is your customer complaints aren't like his customer complaints, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the difference. So maybe the adoption of their emotions and what they went through is a little bit harder on the human there. But yeah, like you're saying, you got to be a pass-through entity for these actions.
Yeah, you have to be the first responder. I listen to these guys talk about their days all the time, you know, and I'm like, oh God, I'm right there with you, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys don't. Yeah, I totally am right there with you.
Anybody who works with the public can understand it to a certain extent.
Yep, exactly, for sure.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, and they tell me some hilarious stories, and they tell me some just brutal ones, So, because we're all in customer service, right? That's what we do. That's what we do at the hospital.
Service industry.
That's what we do in the fire service, and that's what these guys are, doing at that company. So, we're all in customer service.
Yes, and it's tough some days.
It's a tough job.
It's tough some days. Now, another aspect that we talked about a little bit here is the time away, right? I know that's one of the things that I struggle with is the time away from my son, time away from family, whatever it might be. How has it kind of being away from the family affected you over the years? I'm going to start with Scott.
Well, it's funny because if you really look at it, we're gone just 10 days out of the month. Right?
Yes.
Right? So if you look at it, we're home more, theoretically, than the average guy who goes to work Monday through Friday. He works 5 days a week. We only work 10.
Yes.
That's 24 hours. And for some odd reason, every one of those days falls on an important moment for your child.
Right.
I don't know why that is, whether it be a birthday or a special soccer event or, some fencing thing that my son did fencing for a while, whatever it was, it's like, I'm missing it tonight. I've been here how many times and I'm missing one thing I'd really like to be at. So how did it affect me? It affects all of us. I think it's one of the things that we all get bummed out about. I see the young guys today are doing a lot of great things. They trade days a lot more with each other to help each other out. I think that's wonderful. I didn't have that as much in the early years with guys doing that. So I think they get it. They're like, hey, if you can work 4 hours for me tonight, I'll do it for you when you have your football with your son or something skating with your daughter. I think that's a big one. And the other thing is to just be there when you're not home, when you're not at the station, be there, be as available as you possibly can be. I had another job, but that didn't mean I wasn't there for them when I could be.
I feel like FaceTime has really helped out the fire.
You know what?
Yes.
It's funny you say that, because the other thing, too, is I have to really, again, my wife is amazing. I used to get made fun of by the older guys sometimes, but my wife would literally, after dinner, call me and talk to an hour and a half, and I got to know it wasn't her and I talking about stuff. She was filling me in on literally the entire day. So I got from her what actually happened. I don't think you guys really knew that. But like every single thing that happened throughout the day, I knew about. The funny stuff, the bad stuff, the stuff that she was like, when you get home, you got to talk to them about this. Or you know what, it was you'd have been so proud of them today. If they did this, they did that. I got a full boat in there, and I can't thank her enough for that, because that made a difference. And for the wives and spouses out there, first responders, we got time. A lot, we're sitting around after dinner or whatever. Fill us in on it, definitely cool. And I definitely see now my guys that are working under me, FaceTime is amazing.
Yeah.
It's
that's
unbelievable.
the key right there.
It's
My
unbelievable.
kids love meeting my crew.
Oh, for sure. They're like, hey, say hi, Cap. I'm like, hey, guys, how you doing? They're like, oh, good, Mr. Stockinger, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. Just call me Scott.
Yeah, they literally have a window into your world. They
do.
see you happy.
And
they see the goofing. Oh, show me the fire truck. Show me this. What's going on?
I
How many
think
calls did you
FaceTime
do?
is probably one of the best technological things that we have at the station to keep in touch with our families.
Yes, I think it's FaceTime, but also to go along with like events. It's a lot of the sporting events now have some type of live feed.
Yeah, you guys are watching the kids play hockey.
So
and other
they're
sports.
watching their kids play hockey, softball, baseball, whatever it might be. I'm lucky enough, I live in the city that I work in. So if my son's got a baseball game, guess what? Dad's showing up on the fire truck. Right. You know what I mean? Not only do you show up as
we did
the
that
coolest
I
dad
remember
ever.
that soccer game that
Yes.
he showed up to, because he did miss quite a few soccer games, but the one he showed up to in the fire truck, everyone's like, what is that? What's going on? I'm like, that's my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Not a big deal.
Well, and
it was so cool.
And the funny part is when you roll up, right, everybody stops, right? All
'Cause
the
they think
kids on
there's
the
a
field,
problem. Yeah.
yes, all the kids on the field stop and look. All the parents are looking, and you could tell whose kid is there, because my son will just be like, no big deal.
What are you guys
right?
doing?
Yeah, exactly. But with FaceTime, same thing. I think, everybody after dinner, they have their time where, okay, I'm FaceTiming with my son, he's FaceTiming with their kids, and it helps with the time away, because you get to catch up on their day. Hey, how was your day, man? How did this go?
One of my guys, he tells a story to his kids every night, and he doesn't get to miss that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's like, it makes me feel so good to know that he gets to tell the story even though he's not there to them before they go to bed. And it's like, that's awesome. I mean, I didn't have that opportunity. I'd have to do it over a phone. Instead, he's doing it while he's on FaceTime with them, and they're in bed doing their thing, getting ready just like a normal day.
That's great.
And that's awesome.
I think that's very cool. Technology has definitely helped us out there.
Yes. So we've talked about the first responder perspective.
Yeah.
Let's bring it over to the kids here. Cole, Amber, talk to us about how you felt, with the time away from your dad. And did it ever create, tension, resentment, anger? Why is this person's dad's home and he's not?
Most of the time when you're younger, you don't really even realize how much he's gone. You're a kid, you're busy, half that time sleeping. But it definitely is kind of different to have, like, some nights of the week your dad's just simply not at home to go to. And you knew other kids' families, their dad's home every single night. So you did get a little bit jealous at times that you're like, I can't just actively see him or tell him about this right now. But for the most part, it did create a really nice bond, I think, between my mom and my brother and I, because we were like a little team. And then the moments that he was there or was home, he was really present. So it was special, and we knew to do something with that moment because it was the four of us together. So kind of balancing the time and making the time that he does have with us a little bit more special than if he was home every single night, it just would be another night. But if he's home, it's like, well, Dad's home, let's play a game tonight and let's do this, you know what I mean? And then, creating that special bond then with our little mini team when he's not around with my mom.
What about you, Cole?
I think in the beginning, especially as a younger kid, it felt like when Dad was home was kind of almost like a mini vacation in a sense, because we would try to like more prioritize fun things while he was around. But as he got older, I think something I did with me was that, like, because again, I don't know if it's in the blood or what, it's something he did, but I like being a handy guy and doing stuff around the house. And so having those moments to be able to like work with him and like do stuff around the house were like really valuable to me, because like I understood that, like, you know what, and especially as I get older now, it's like I'm going to be moving out, you know, the fact that he might not be here, it's like I really did cherish those moments and things like that. And just it didn't matter what we were doing, but rather we were doing it together. And I think that was more important for me. Especially kind of going through like just not having all that time. I think what also really helped too for me, or like a little bit later on around, I'm going to call him a brother, but I met a friend in about third grade, and we're still friends to this day. He's a brother for life. His dad actually traveled for work overseas for 2 to 3 months at a time. So for me, I kind of seeing that and like seeing what that's like for him, I kind of almost was like, and again, not that his situation's bad, no comment on that, but like, I don't have it that bad. I still get to see my dad regularly. Like, yeah, sure, a little weird at the first, where it's like, why was dad gone for 24 hours at a time? But like once you kind of understood that, it's like I'm still getting to see him. He's not like in a position where he's traveling for months at a time, or he's gone most of the year and stuff. So for me, is like I still really valued the time we had, and like, hey, I could have it a lot worse. You know what I mean? And in that sense of having the time to be able to spend with him. So
now you guys talked about your little team. While dad's at work, it's the little team there at work, and then dad comes home, you know, and we've talked about a lot of this on the podcast, is kind of that re-entry time, right? Mm-hmm. So you guys are clicking along, you guys have a set schedule, you have how you guys are doing things, and then we come home, right? And we've got an idea of how things are running, but we may not know exactly how things are running, and we interject our kind of ideas about how things should go and things like that, and then that kind of causes problems within that whole process, right? We kind of throw a wrench into the whole thing. Talk about that re-entry and that balance of kind of learning, like, oh man.
I think that might be one of the biggest stressors that the husband, wife, spouses have, is that re-entry part. Mm-hmm. Because it was probably for a long time, probably too long, I should have known sooner, that I didn't get it. It's like, I'm not the one that's here every day. So guess what? Even though it's 10 days a month, I'm still not here every day. I have to realize that. And certain amount of conforming has to go on, because it's like they are fully functioning and independent without me. And if something happens to me, I want that. So I don't want to screw that up. I also want to make sure that my wife and I have a good relationship. I don't want to come home every 4 day and have the first 2 days her and I are arguing because I want something done a certain way, and she says, look, this is what works for us. So I think a big thing is the first responder needs to pay attention to their spouse, whether you're husband or wife or however your situation is. You need to pay attention to that team, because that team works. I mean, these guys are awesome together. I would put Tracy and Cole and Amber up against anybody for anything. I mean, awesome. Literally.
It's got to feel pretty good.
It feels great. You know what I mean? Like, not only do I have independent kids, I have a very independent wife. But it's funny, they don't want to be independent. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's nice that Cole likes to be independent. Amber likes to be independent. My wife does too. But at the end of the day, I really realized later on in my career, they don't want to be. They're doing it because they kind of have to. Right. So when you come home, instead of trying to mess up that whole great teamwork process that's going on, just work with it, because you know what? You're going to have so much better time with your family. You're going to enjoy it so much more when I finally realize. And there's still problems. I mean, there's still days I mess it up.
Don't we all?
I make a lot of messes.
Literally, yeah. I mean, I mess it up with them. I mess it up with her. I mess it up with them as a team, because it's like it happens. But I'm telling you right now, the sooner you can like work with that and get that worked out, the better your life will be overall as the first responder.
Yeah. So Cole, Amber.
Yeah, there's definitely been some moments where we're having a great day and he comes home and we're saying some inside jokes, and it's like kind of sad because he just like doesn't get it, and he's just not been there all day to know, and he really missed something, and that's kind of sad watching him watch us almost. That's the harder parts of it. And also, yeah, you know, it can definitely cause tension. You've been gone. I told you to do the window, you know, last week, and you still aren't, you're tired, but you got to do it. I think that's kind of why we've become so independent, because we're like, well, if dad can't do that task because he's busy, and then he just came home from working a long shift, and now he's being told to do all these things that my mom couldn't get to, maybe we can step up in that place and do that for him. which I think is a good thing because that's just kind of who we are, and we like that independence. But that definitely can cause friction. I mean, you definitely have to see a little bit of friction, but that's any parents, no couple, no family is perfect, so you're going to get a bit of that tension and argument. But I think
you got to have a little bit of friction and heat to bond, right?
Exactly,
Yeah. Right.
exactly. They've handled it really well, I think, in every facet of that. But yeah, it's definitely sad that he misses some really good days. And then other days he comes home in a good mood, and we are not in that state of mind. And he needs to figure out real quick that it is just
read
shut
the room.
up. Yeah, read the room.
Yeah,
It's
read the
not
room.
been a fun time.
It tends to be me walking through the door,
Yeah.
blasting through, hyper caffeinated.
Yeah. He's definitely a read the room moment.
The
but
rare
there's-
moments you get good night's sleep. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Cole? Anything different or?
I also kind of felt bad, but in a different sense of like that sense of like having to conform to how things are already functioning. Again, we have a particular mom, and honestly,
particular
I was going to
too.
say I am equally as
They
particular.
are almost twins.
Yeah, I have
They both have beautiful hair. I'm sure.
Yeah, no, my wife does, but I'm just saying.
We all love you,
they are-
Tracy. We all love you.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're very much that's there too. Yeah, Tracy
Yeah,
and Cole.
everything has a label. The label maker has a label. Like we are borderline OCD about things, and so when you kind of come in and like we've gone through, and because me and Mom would just have clean days some days where we'd re-optimize something, and to come in and then to have Dad come in and sometimes be frustrated, and that was the hardest part for me was like I understood his side I think a lot. Again, I don't want to speak for Mom, but sometimes it felt like I understood a little bit better than Mom did, or at least we could be more accepting of it because it's like, I get it. You weren't here. You have no idea what's going on. I can't imagine how frustrating and like disappointing that's got to be. And so I always tried to do my best to just like calm the situation and explain it the best I could so you can at least try to understand. Because it's like, yeah, we've gone through and re-optimized something. And this is how it's going to be because it's better. We love your ideas, but we're better. It's the right way.
And you're living with it. Like we're living with it
Yeah.
more than he has to. So
Yes.
like,
Yeah, you got another third more time with. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
get
so
that.
I think that was really hard, and so I always try to like help him through that because I can only imagine what that's like to go through. So, yeah, I think that was kind of the biggest thing for me on top of what I remember I ever said for everything else, essentially.
That makes sense, and it makes me feel better that I'm normal because this is all the stuff that happens in my house.
Oh no, I mean it's a lot of work. We've been married 28 years. We've known each other for 30, my wife and I, and I'm super proud of that. I'm proud of her and everything she's accomplished. I think her biggest accomplishment is sitting right next to me. These two are amazing adults, and we've done a good job of making it through. And it's not easy. The bottom line is it's not easy to stay married, be married, and then in a good way. Wouldn't. I don't think I'd ever want it to be easy. First
Right.
of all. And then second of all, to get these two to come out at the end, it's like, oh, all right,
If it was easy, these kids wouldn't be so good off.
No, I mean,
If you treat it, you can make it easy.
Yeah.
The outcome isn't going to be as valuable.
Oh no, for sure. I think a lot of people have tried to make it easy.
They do.
and they've not done it justice to their children, and they've
Or
not done it
themselves.
justice to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I want to follow up with just some very brief closing questions. So you guys are very proud of Dad, and you're proud of Mom too, I'm sure. And she has a
Absolutely.
job that's just as much of a frontline job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So did you ever feel pressure to follow in your dad's footsteps in the first responder world? Do you feel that because of his pride and follow through?
That's a great question because I think for me, if anything, their experience taught me what I didn't want to do.
I feel the same way about my parents' jobs.
I mean, table talk was some weird stuff, especially having two medical professionals. So you got used to a lot, but at the end of the day, it did taught
He
me
didn't
like.
though. He told us a lot of times to stop talking.
I just wanted to finish eating and then you can continue. It's just like I don't want to be thinking of whatever I'm thinking about.
Not every
while I'm-
brain gets excited about those moments.
Yeah, it's just like let me enjoy the bite and then you can talk about the fun stuff. I think the footsteps aren't necessarily the job, but the kind of person they are. And I think we followed in their footsteps almost to a T. They are both. The best way I describe Dad to other people is like he will cut off his own arm if you need an arm at that moment, right? He will sacrifice anything for you. And I think helping people and supporting people is in our blood. It's who we are. And so currently, obviously, having been customer service, going on a decade at this point, I think does follow in that footsteps to a degree. It's like I just inherently desire to help people and solve problems. Again, what that field looks like, is going to change. At the end of the day, that's still my goal is to help people. And like even like when I do stuff at home, like I'm kind of secretly a prepper for like just situations to like people might need stuff. I'm the guy who literally at work I'm the guy who has the screwdriver, the glue, the measuring tape, like just the most random stuff you would need, just so that I can be there to help somebody if they need me. Because I just don't want to. I don't know if it's from the job or who we are as people, but like I don't want to leave a call for help unanswered.
So it wasn't like you felt a pressure to follow in his footsteps professionally, but you certainly felt guidance.
Yeah.
In approaching life in a similar way.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I followed his footsteps in career, but I'd say I'd follow their footsteps as the people they are.
Yeah.
And grew
and
the person
you
I become.
apply it in a similar fashion.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. What about you, Amber? I feel like if out of the two, you would have been
definitely feel a little pressure. Yeah. I mean, I'm only 24. I could still become a firefighter at this point.
Yes, absolutely.
So definitely, I think him having just like such a cool, important job that has both purpose and passion, and it's something he's always loved. Nothing sizes up to that. He's a firefighter. Like, no one hates firefighters. Everybody loves firefighters.
Yeah.
They're doing cool stuff. They're saving lives. They're helpful. They're friendly. He embodies all of those characteristics so well that I definitely am like, no career is going to size up to being a firefighter, in my mind. Like, that is peak,
Yeah, you definitely exude that, and I feel like if anybody's going to follow
it would definitely
if I had to pick between the two of them, she would be it right
I get
now.
it. She's got the fire.
She's got everything.
About it.
Oh yeah, she's got everything.
He'd be fine too, but she's got that little spark.
Yeah,
Let's
he
get
does.
after
He's
it.
not really a blood guy.
I
Bodily fluids are really not his thing.
I don't mind it, but I start to imagine the pain they're experiencing, and that's where I'm like, oof, that's rough.
That goes away eventually. I'm just kidding.
No. But I did want to actually. Amber did say something that I did want to piggyback off of was the level of the job. Like nothing comes up to that. Like I have not found a job that's been satisfying. I've been wanting pretty much it feels like my entire life at this point, and it feels like again not following in his career footsteps, but filling those shoes is like. They are some big boots to fill, and they are. It sometimes feels impossible, or it just feels like, at least in modern society, like there's just nothing that's going to fill that I feel I can do. Because it's like I'll drive home some days and I'll just daydream about like these crazy scenarios where like I was able to step up and like help somebody and like do something amazing, and it's just like, how am I going to find that in my day to day? Like solving your problem with your iPhone is not. It is the easiest thing you can do. Like I feel like I'm not amounting to anything. So it's just like, I think that is actually probably the biggest thing that's hard.
Do you think that maybe Dad's passion for it, his love for it, his constant, I feel like so everybody knows, I didn't know Scott until we did this. Mike works with him, but I'm definitely getting that he's the guy who steps up. He's the guy who's fixing and washing the truck. He's the guy to make sure all the equipment's there. And that type of energy and passion, no matter what he's doing, is going to look like he's having a great time.
It's not even having a great time. It's just, again, that stepping up, that passion for, because it's again, him helping to bring up that support group team and like all the other things, all the other initiatives and extra that he goes above and beyond for, I think is probably another one of the hardest parts. Because like about both of us at work, we go above and beyond in every day, just in our jobs that we already hate, essentially, because it's like, that's just who we are. We can't not help that. And so, like, I think that's another thing that drives us to just want to be better constantly.
And also, like, the job itself is just so cool. Like, I just sat at a desk for 8 hours, and then I come home and here he's, doing some sort of ice training on the river and some confined space training and all these height stuff.
There was a couple
and
good
like,
meals, jokes.
Yeah, he loves cooking with the guys. He's got stories to tell and share about his family over there because they really are a family. They're not just coworkers, whereas I would just say, a coworker. He gets cool stories about them to share and all these new personalities he meets. So it's definitely like, my boring office job is just not sizing up to the way work is described. Not to say he also has, an office-y
Well, you
job.
still have your days.
Yeah, you have a lot of days.
Yeah, you have some days where...
But he gets to move around. He gets to do stuff that not everybody gets to do, and that a lot of people don't get to experience in just going to a 9-to-5 office type of situation.
Right.
Recently, too, I've found something about me and my family is this has been my dream job. Like when I was a little boy, this is what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a cowboy, an astronaut. I didn't want to be a football player, a basketball player. I wanted to be a fireman. To the point where the reruns for Emergency 51 were on when I was a young boy, and I would go inside after playing outside, because back in the day you played outside all day.
Oh, yeah.
I'd go in for the 1 hour show, watch the show, and come back outside and play. That was important to me. That was what I wanted to be. And that was my whole life. And my dad wanted me to be a salesman because he thought I had what it takes, and I think I would have been a great salesman, quite honestly, but it wouldn't have been my passion. It wouldn't have been what I wanted. And I found out over the years that I'm a rare entity. Mm-hmm. Most people do actually dream about being cool, wanted to be a train engineer. You know, I mean, seriously, for years and years and years, Thomas and everything else, that was what he was going to be. And I was always like, dude, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Somebody's got to drive that thing.
Yeah, trains aren't going anywhere. We need train engineers, right? And I just supported that through and through, because even after my dad was like, okay, you're not going to be a salesman, you're going to be a fireman, he supported me. Couldn't understand why I'd want to run into a building to help people I don't know, you know, but he's like, I'll be more than happy to help support you. And he did. He supported me really well. And I was shocked by that because of, again, I don't think he was doing his job that he dreamed of as a child. I mean, literally, you know, it's like becoming a cowboy if you want to be a cowboy.
I can relate to
Becoming
that
an
a lot.
astronaut if you want to be an astronaut. And the funny thing is, too, I just recently, within the last year, I kind of had another epiphany. I wasn't made to be a fireman. That's not who I kind of all 100% am. It's what I wanted to be, and it's my dream job, and I did it. But I really wasn't, I don't think I was ever meant to be a fireman in my being. You know what I mean? I made that happen.
It just happens to fit.
It fits me, but I made that happen. It wasn't like that was like,
It
there's
didn't
some
fall
guys,
into your
there's some
lap.
guys in this job, you know what I'm talking,
Yeah.
who I'm talking about. We all have them. These guys were meant to be firefighters.
Right.
They look badass, they act badass, they do their job, they're really good at it.
Square jaw.
Yeah. You know, the whole 9 yards, these guys are firemen. I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? I've had
feel
the
you there.
walrus mustache my entire career.
I don't know. You said you fit a very, very particular
Captain
sect of our
Kangaroo,
community.
Kangaroo.
walrus, push broom. I mean, I've been called a lot of things,
Yes.
you know. But yeah, I came to that, and it's like, wow, I feel even luckier that I got to do what I was dreaming of doing.
Yes.
And it's like, I feel bad sometimes because I think that parlays to them, and I don't want them to have to feel that pressure. You know what I mean? It's almost like a pressure I've put on them by being so passionate about it, by wanting it so bad, by being in this position.
Yeah.
You know?
Very few of my friends knew what they were going to do in kindergarten. Right.
Right.
I
Yeah.
knew
Oh,
what
yeah.
I was going to do in
Oh, yeah.
kindergarten.
Yep.
And that was me. That was, you know, same deal. You know, I found the same thing. It's like, yeah, we have a job that's really cool. We get to do a lot of cool things, whatever,
Yeah.
right? And my son, number one, he'll look at me and be like, I don't want to be a fireman. But he loves coming up to the station. He loves playing with the trucks, seeing the guys, you know, those types of things. He's like, I don't want to be a fireman. I looked at him, I go, that's fine, man. Like, I just want him to find that job that makes him happy, like the fire service makes me happy.
Right.
And I've told him that. I go, dude, I don't care what you do as long as it makes you happy. Do it 100% and make sure it makes you happy.
Is that not what I've told you guys? 100%, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we look at our job like, yeah, that's our job, right? That's what we do. We go to work.
Right.
Do we get to be, we are put in situations to do some cool things, right?
Right.
But I want him to have that passion that you guys talk about and really have that drive. I want that thing to like where he talks about it and he gets a smile on his face.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to see him glow when he talks.
Like that's what I want for my kid. I would never force him into the fire service unless he wanted to do it, right?
Right.
But it's finding that passion, like that's the key, man. Like if you can
Yeah,
find that,
and they're having a hard time, but once they find it, they're going to find it.
you're
I
gonna
know.
find it.
You know why?
And you'll know.
Because we've left it open. Tracy and I have left it open to them to find that passion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
You're not stuck in
it's
anything.
hard. I mean, I
Yes.
even give my dad credit. You know, he tried to push me down the pathway because my dad was buying computers back in the day when they were like take up a whole room. It cost millions of dollars just to do payroll.
Yeah.
He's like, oh God, those guys at some. He's like, Scott, you could totally do that. I'm like, yeah, I don't care, Dad. It's not really what I want to do, you know? And I'll be honest, I became a nurse first. If you listen to how long I've been a nurse, I've been a nurse since 93 and a fireman since 02. A fireman convinced me to be a nurse. Said, hey, at the time, back in the 90s, I wasn't sure where firefighting was going. So he's like, why don't you get a job as a nurse? Guys talk about that here, you know, about how that would be a good side gig. And he's like, you'll always have it. There'll always be something there. And I found out, gosh, I really like this. You know, I found some good
paying
friends,
wage.
people.
You can
I
get a
like
job
doing it. I
anywhere.
like using my brain. Worked in critical care. You know.
Yeah.
And I picked the worst possible time ever. We have Cole, who's barely been born, and we're pregnant with her, and I'm going back to school, and I'm working, and
I don't know how you did that.
It was rough. My
Expert
wife,
mode all the time.
my wife is utterly amazing because I mean
Yeah.
she put up with a lot during that time period.
Tracy's an all-star.
Here's the
Yeah,
Tracy.
yeah, definitely.
Yes. Cheers to Tracy.
Well, thank you guys very much. This has been a very enlightening interview, and
Yeah.
this is going to spur hopefully more family conversations to bring more kids in here.
Love it.
No, we hope so.
Absolutely
we
love it.
appreciate you guys coming
Thanks for
in
having
and-
us on. Really,
and opening it up. You know what I mean? It's not easy to necessarily talk about some of this
Yeah.
stuff. So I appreciate you guys coming on. And
no, thanks for
talking.
having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our dad's the coolest, so I'm happy to talk to him about it.
I hope my kids say that one day.
I know.
My 6-year-old wants to be a firefighter, but she'll change that. Yesterday she wanted to be a princess.
Well, this one right here wanted to be a princess's doctor.
Oh,
That's actually not a bad move.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
I feel like
even
they
if the
pay
princess
well.
I told her no matter what, you're gonna have a great gig. I said,
Yeah.
Didn't go down that route.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Very few princesses to doctor.
Yes.
A limiting audience.
Very niche market.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you
Have a
guys.
good
Have a
night.
good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and have a great day.